Color. What a deep and mysterious language. The language of dreams. Hi, my name is Nate Jeffers, and I am the writer and artist behind DSR Deep Space Rescue, and this is Creating Comics 101, the web series. So in part 3 of this series, we're going to discuss color. Why is color so important in comics? Why is color important in storytelling in general? Well, it's really tied to that quote. When we're talking about dreams, we're talking about emotion, color is key. But why do we say that? Why is color key? Well, the fact is that color in your comic will help convey emotion and mood and enhance your storytelling. So how can you harness the power of color in your comic? Well, let's break it down. We're going to simplify things with just 3 tips that will help you to master coloring your very own comic. So for our first tip, we're going to talk about something that's kind of ironic, but we're going to talk about shading first. So why shade first? Well, if you're thinking about your shading, you're thinking about the light in your picture. Your shading will determine the direction that your light is coming from. Thinking about where your light's coming from will help you to add depth and character to your illustrations. So let's talk about my approach to doing shading. Basically what I do is I select 3 tones of gray: a light tone, a medium tone, and a dark tone. I will use the lightest tone the most in my drawing, as in covering the most area of whatever I'm illustrating. And that medium tone, I'll use a little bit less. And that darkest tone, we'll use just in the smallest areas. Now, of course, this isn't a hard and fast rule. It really depends on what's happening in your scene and what the lighting conditions are in your story. So once you've determined what your shading will look like, you can now move on to our second tip. This is a common trap a lot of artists fall into when they first start coloring digitally, that they try to select every single shade of the color that they're using. But if you've already done step 1 of shading, you don't have to do that. This is a really powerful tip. So because you already did your shading, you can now lay a flat color on top of your shading layer. Now, depending on which software you use, it may use different terminology, but since I use Clip Studio, that's what I'm going to demonstrate here. So you'll see I have a shade layer here, and we have another layer that is just a single color. Now that single color layer is set to multiply. Once it's on top of the other layer, you have a variation of color. You don't have to pick all those different shades of colors with this approach. So what's our third and final tip? Well, that is to keep it simple. Now, what are we talking about? Well, at times we may get excited because coloring digitally, you have every color in the universe available to you. But you don't want to use too many bright colors or too many dark colors. You want to land somewhere in between. And so to do this, you can consider adjusting your colors after they're done. Most digital programs have a tool called saturation that allows you to adjust how bright something is. You can make use of that, or you can look up pictures. Look up pictures from movies and use the dropper tool to sample the colors that are in a shot, and then use those for your comic. So hopefully you found these tips helpful. This was a very, very simplified explanation of coloring comics, and there's actually a lot more to it. In fact, this being the 3rd video of this series, these have all been fairly simplified. So I'd like to get more in depth, but I think what we'll do is make those available on Patreon. And I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who's already supporting me on Patreon. The goal of this series will be to allow everyone to be able to create their own comic And so those more in-depth videos will be coming soon, exclusively on Patreon. I'm sending out rewards quarterly to backers that includes some of my own artwork on different types of merch. Well, thanks again for watching, and don't forget to check out my graphic novel series, DSR Deep Space Rescue. Volume 2 is coming soon.